Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, welcome to the second Una Europa talk. Una Europa comprises 8 leading European universities that have come together to create a university of the future. Our combined student and staff community approached together 500,000 people. So it's a large community. We joined together to achieve this ambitious goal to create a university of the future. Today, more than ever, we believe that it is crucial to work together with our European neighbors to strengthen the idea of a common European research and learning area and to address grand challenges like, and in particular, sustainability and climate protection. I think I don't have to explain this in this week of Rome and Glasgow, but it is a burning topic for all of us. We are a huge community, and together we are stronger. This is the reason why we are working on innovative education formats, such as joint bachelors, the Bachelor in European Studies, challenge-based learning, micro-credentials, and a joint PhD. This is the reason why we are encouraging our students and our members to think and build the university of the future together. This is the reason why we are developing initiatives to rethink higher education in all its facets, from research strategy to innovative teaching, to the question of how we want to operate as institutions in the light of climate protection and sustainability. We are very honored here at Freie Universität to host the second Una Europa talk in this hybrid format. The Una Europa talk is one way of bringing all members of our universities with their own institutional cultures and, thanks to the Berlin Science Week and the Falling Walls Foundation, a broader public together. It's an opportunity and we are very happy to host it. A few months ago, we published our manifesto, in which our first point underlined that we believe in a university that is not a place, but a body of knowledge, ideas, and values evolving freely beyond borders, mediums, and time. This is also the aim of the Una Europa talk. I already mentioned the commitment of Una Europa to the focus area of sustainability and climate protection. The topic of the second Una Europa talk underlines the importance and high relevance not only for our university alliance, but also for the overall idea of a European university. At Freie Universität, we have been working intensively on fostering sustainability for over 20 years. It's a long-term effort. In December 2019, nearly 2 years ago, we were the first German university to declare a state of climate emergency. It is our university's commitment to take climate protection and sustainability into account in all our plans and decisions, thus enabling us to become climate neutral by 2025. This is very soon, and we know that, and we think that it's necessary and feasible. To support this genuine interest, we also actively address sustainability and climate protection as core themes in all our international networks of the university. We participate in the academic discourse on the Global Sustainable Development Goals as adopted by the United Nations in 2015, and in their implementation in the university's own area of responsibility. It's a global discourse, but we know that we have to act locally. Furthermore, we believe that through meaningful and powerful actions, such as achieving climate neutrality by 2025, developing a sustainability toolbox, and being involved in networks like the University Alliance on Sustainability, we implement now a core component for our vision for the future of Freie Universität. Last but not least, we are leading the work of the focus area sustainability within Una Europa. With this second Una Europa talk, we provide a broad platform for the different visions and ideas that exist within and beyond the Una Europa community, notably the student, academic, and university management perspectives, and highlight the special role European universities can play in the field of sustainability. Indeed, the focus on sustainability is fundamental to Una Europa as a strategic building block of the Alliance. The Una Europa partner institutions share an understanding of the sustainable university as an institution that systematically develops communities, opportunities, spaces, and projects to tackle global environmental and societal challenges. And we also know that the environmental and the societal challenges, of course, belong together and are intertwined. I only want to highlight here two initiatives. The first one is the future UniLab, which serves as the think tank of Una Europa. Designed as a living laboratory, it aims to provide a forum for discussion on the future role of universities in society, develop groundbreaking tools and models for cooperation in European higher education, and assess and future-proof Una Europa's activities. The second initiative is the Una Europa Task Force on Sustainability and Climate Protection, which was created with experts from across our 8 partner institutions, leading our effort and fostering our institutional commitments to sustainability by facilitating inter-university learning and exchange. This task force has drafted a joint Una Europa sustainability and climate protection strategy that reflects our strengths and joint commitments on all aspects of sustainability and climate protection at our universities. So much from me now. I now have the pleasure to pass the floor to our moderator, Jan-Martin Viada, and our 4 panelists from Una Europa universities and from another European University Alliance, and thus also representing different perspectives on the role of European universities in building the sustainable university of the future. Welcome to Freie Universität for the second Una Europa talk. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Günter Ziegler. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome from me as well to the second Una Europa talk. My name is Jan-Martin Viada. I'm a journalist for education and research. European universities driving the sustainable university of the future. What is the role and responsibility of European higher education institutions in the process of transforming both European universities and European societies as a whole toward a more sustainable development? What can, what should be done by science to contribute to reach the UN Sustainable Development Goals and to meet the European Union's Green Deal? And very specifically, what does that mean for a European University Alliance such as Una Europa that has put sustainability at the top of its shared agenda? Let me introduce my fellow panelists to you. I start with Professor Soledad Garcia Ferrari. She is the personal chair of Global Urbanism and Resilience at the University of Edinburgh, and she is also member of the Una Europa Future UniLab, which has already been mentioned, on sustainability and visionaries. Alexandra Liss is a PhD student in cultural studies at the Jagiellonian University and also closely involved in the Future UniLab. Welcome. And virtually with us is Doris Alexander. She is the Associate Director of European Engagement at Trinity College Dublin and member of the project management team for the CHARM EU, yet another European university alliance that, as we will hear, has close links with Una Europe. Great to have you with us, Doris. And again here on the stage, Verena Blechinger-Talcott, Vice President International Affairs at the Freie Universität and Chair of the Una Europa Board of Directors. Welcome to all of you. And I would like to start with you, Alexandra. You, as I said, are also closely involved in the future UniLab. We heard a little bit about it already, but maybe in your own words, how do you believe this think tank, which the future UniLab is, can contribute to the ongoing sustainability discourse? And first of all, how did you get involved there?
Yeah, thank you. Maybe I'll start with the first one.
Sure.
So I really believe it, to go to the university of the future, sustainable university of the future, we need to compare our ideas, discuss our ideas, good practices, approaches. And I think future UniLab is the place for these discussions and adjustments that all of us, so all of our universities can then use after being discussed and adjust. So I think it's the good place for the discussion and adjustment, and we all need that in our path to the sustainable university of the future. And where's how I got involved in there? The colleague of mine with whom I worked in the Center for Research on Higher Education of the Jagiellonian University, and then the supervisor of my PhD thesis in cultural studies is involved in the future UniLab, and he invited me to join the team. So I was involved in the Visionaries discussions in 2 rounds of it, and now I'm also involved in the implementers team. So both, it's extremely interesting for me to be the part of this process.
So it's extremely interesting for you. It's also important to you being a PhD student. I would be really much interested in hearing on your view as you are an Una Europe student, and what you think about, or what the European Una Europe student community thinks about sustainability, and specifically how the Alliance should address the topic in the future. So what do students think about it, and what does that mean to the future of the Alliance?
Well, I will talk from my perspective. I'm not sure if I can share, the common student's perspective, but I believe being the PhD students, it's crucial time, because we're still the students and we're already the employees. We're influencing our own students, and we're still much more in the influence of our teachers, mentors, supervisors. So that's the crucial time for the universities, the institution, to get us involved. So if we're heading to the university of the future, we need to think about the people of the future, and PhD students are those people. So I think that's a crucial time for us being involved in the process of getting to the sustainable university of the future.
Thank you so much. Before we got together for our event, I asked all of you about the key message that you would like to convey. And Alexander, you wrote me, your key message is that academic communities shall share good practices within the institutions and act as an example institution for the outside. The role of the alliance, this alliance, Una Europa, is crucial in this. Can you tell us a little bit more why the alliance is crucial in that?
When you're looking at the, separate university, separate institution, there are a variety of faculties, different perspectives and approaches. But when we look at 8 universities with the same strategy, we have more approaches to take into account. We have more good practices. We've made more mistakes we can look at. So it's crucial because it gives us, a raw material to work on. There are also more hands on board. more PhD students involved, more professor supervisors who can be involving, more students to be engaged in different types of initiatives. Like, the more of us, the better.
The stronger you are. Thank you so much for now.
Thank you.
Soledad, you were, as I said, one of the first visionaries in the area of sustainability of the future, UniLab. Could you also start by telling us how you got involved and why?
Similar to Alexandra, it was a fascinating experience, and I was involved as one of the representatives from one of the universities in Una Europa at the University of Edinburgh. And I think the nicest aspect of the Visionaries' work was the openness of it, the openness in relation to disciplinary knowledges and expertise, but also levels of experience within academic careers and professional services as well. And it created a really open conversation, which started by thinking, what is sustainability? How do we commonly share an idea about sustainability? How do we define it? And what sort of skills our students will need to acquire when they have to become these leaders of the future to tackle these challenges. So it was really exciting to be part of it.
Probably the definition of what sustainability is, defining sustainability is the hardest job, isn't it, Soledad? Because it's such a well-known term, but obviously to many people it means something different. So how did you come up with a definition? What is the Una Europa definition of sustainability?
I wouldn't say that it is Una Europa's definition, but it was the definition we agreed as a group of visionaries writing this initial report. Of course, as Alexandra explained, I think these reports will go through a process of thinking about implementation of the ideas discussed through these meetings. So our initial shared idea about sustainability, I think, came from the level of responsibility that we have as institutions, and in that sense, understanding sustainability needing to develop regenerative practices. How do we generate nature? How do we create a way of bringing together new models for economy, for society, that are actually creating new relationships between society and their environment to regenerate what we usually destroy in a way. And in the context of universities, we thought about sustainability as the whole. So thinking about universities as a machine that will have a number of activities, from teaching to scholarship to research to action research, and how do we, and people as well. So how do we think of ways in which all of these different aspects of the university work will create a sort of benefiting balance in terms of our environment and our future world.
And all of that already led to a report on the topic, which is entitled, How Can Universities Become Future-Proof and Resilient in an Ever More Rapidly Changing World? So what are the main recommendations there?
We had a number of recommendations, and I think as we know, the notion of sustainability is so broad. But our recommendations related to the interlinks between research, teaching, and sort of the work of universities within society. So how do we ensure that the knowledge that universities produce is actually creating change? And I think that there is where I feel there is perhaps a gap that we still need to work on. We are, as universities, the machines of knowledge creation, and we know that this will be better if it is co-created, co-produced, if we do it in collaboration, and if we engage with other sectors of society that are not just universities. But beyond that, beyond creating the knowledge, is how do we ensure that this knowledge is actually used in the best possible way and is actually able to tackle these challenges that we talk about? I feel that with the case of COVID, there is a really interesting example. Universities were leading sectors of society, creating solutions to tackle the problem and the associated problems as related with COVID. We developed vaccines, we developed medicines, but are universities taking a leading role in ensuring that these vaccines and these medicines are actually reaching everyone in the world? And this is where I feel that perhaps universities need to take a stronger position, a stronger commitment in ensuring that the bigger problems of society are resolved: inequalities and corruption, etc.
I think that's an important observation, that universities do have an impact, but oftentimes we don't really understand how that impact works on society, and that we have to learn about how the impact on society works to make it more definitive, to steer it towards society. And I think that's a very important question we should talk about more later on. Thanks so much for now. Doris Alexander, you are a member of CHARM EU. Your university is a member of CHARM EU. Maybe you tell us just very briefly about CHARM EU, who's in there, and then how did the cooperation with Una Europa begin?
Hi, good afternoon, and I'm delighted to be with you digitally. So CHARM EU, similar to Una Europa, is one of the 17 university alliances funded through the first pilot call. And of course, we know then there was subsequently another 24 funded through the second pilot call. So it's a small alliance. It's an alliance of 5 universities. And our mission and our vision is very much around reconciling humanity with the planet. So sustainability is very much the core of what we do in that regard. And of course, the first 17 alliances have set up an informal network called 4EU1, where we come together to discuss challenges and issues and share experiences. And that's divided into a number of subgroups, one of which is the research and innovation subgroup, which I sit on along with colleagues from Una Europa.
So, and your alliance, CHARM EU, co-developed with Una Europa and position on the transformational module driving regeneration, sustainability and climate protection, with focus on institutional, organizational, cultural approaches. And this paper takes into account all current sustainability and climate protection measures, and in terms of all aspects of university campus activities. And the spaces occupied into account. So maybe you could focus on some of the main areas for transformation that are in the position and that are important to you.
Absolutely. So I think it very much resonates actually with what our 2 previous speakers have spoken about. And that reflects the fact that, of course, Una Europa, along with CHARM EU, very much drove out the development of this paper. So, you know, we looked across the entirety of the missions of a university. A university is multifunctional, and a European University Alliance magnifies the effect of that. So we looked across 4 main levels. The first one is looking at a university level governance. So if you really want to change a university, or indeed an alliance of universities, you have to know where your baseline is and where you want to move to. And then you have to be able to measure that progress, and you have to be able to put in place the resources to move from one space to another. So that's a very important part of university governance, but also things around flexible working, hybrid working, to allow people to work from home. So there's less cars or less public transport needed in order for people to go to work. Looking at making decisions around investment, divesting from fossil fuels as an example, and working to ensure that all parts of the community are engaged in whatever the climate action strategy for that university. So that's the kind of the first level and some of the actions we called out. At the second level, it's around policies. So ensuring that sustainable development is taken into account across all policies in a university. And because a university is multifunctional, sometimes we develop policies which are siloed from each other. And if we really want to look at sustainable development, we have to consider, as the previous speaker mentioned, this interconnection across the different missions of a university. So we have to look at things like green procurement. We also have to look at balancing internationalization on one hand and travel mobility on another hand. And how do we do that? And then we looked at research, education, and innovation. And very important are the connections between those. So having a research-informed education. all of our universities are involved really in projects that are really relevant to sustainable development. And how do we enable that to drive the narrative in terms of our educational process? Then educational skills development at all levels, right across the community, not just for our students, but also for our staff as well. And that's academic, administrative, and technical staff. Looking at the development of internal funds, perhaps to drive sustainability ideas, so a sustainability fund, for example, and looking at how we innovate and who we innovate with. What external stakeholders do we work with? And how can we drive out innovation in a way that is just and inclusive? Because we want sustainable development to be resonating with climate justice. And then finally, as you've mentioned, the actual footprint of the university or of the Alliance. So we inhabit a footprint and we can use our campus as a living lab. And to do that, we have to consider that, and I know both Una Europa and CHARMEU have a lot of very old historic universities with a lot of very old buildings with investment needs, but also have new builds. And they come with differing challenges, and we need to take those into account if we are to live our own principles on campus. So how do we do that, and how do we actually work to change our behaviour on campus? And link in with what is, of course, I know, very dear to Una Europa's heart, the Bauhaus principles. So sustainable development and then inclusion, whilst having quality of experience or aesthetics.
So great plans, a lot of ideas, Doris, but how do you make sure that actually most of those ideas, and many of those ideas I know are new, really make it into reality? I mean, it looks great on paper, Doris, it's great when you tell all this, but who's in charge of making this real?
Okay, well, I think the first thing to say is it's already happening. Our alliances are pioneering innovation in this area. So these plans very much both within Una Europa and with CHARMEU have been endorsed at the level of our rector and vice rector. So we already have that university level approach to instigating it. When putting together this paper, we also drew from our experiences of things we're doing within our alliances. So from the CHARMEU perspective, we have launched a Master's in Global Challenges for Sustainability. We have an Erasmus project called UniEcho, which is around behavioural change on our campuses, on university campuses. I know the Una Europa, as has been just mentioned, you have a thematic focus area on sustainability. You have a climate protection strategy, which I think you're in the process of launching, and you have a micro-credential on sustainability. So we are living our principles at the moment, but we're also drawing from our member universities. So I'm from Trinity College in Dublin, and we're in the process of putting together a climate action plan. And we have also just appointed the first Vice President for Biodiversity and Climate Action. We're looking also to bring on board the projects that our universities are involved with, be they nature-based solutions. Most of our universities, both across Una Europa and CHARMEU, are based in cities. So we're urban anchors, and we can engage as part of that process with our cities. And many of our projects include those cities. So it's about taking the outputs of our projects and actually incorporating them into what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you so much, Doris, for now. So let's move back to Berlin now, Verena Blechinger-Talcott, and let's zoom out a little bit of the picture. You have been representing Una Europa at the highest levels in meeting with the European Commission and Council presidency on the topic of sustainability. How do European universities feed into the discussion, and are they heard at all there at the highest level at the European Commission?
Yeah, I think we are heard. First of all, we represent a tremendous number of people. Now, if you look at Una Europa, we are 8 universities. That's 500,000 people in Europe. So, and it's really a substantial part of the European student body. So, in that way, for the policymakers at the EU level, we are important partners because, on the one hand, this is where the research happens, and Soledad has said that earlier. This is where the research happens, where the knowledge comes from, but this is also where the students are pushing us very, very hard. So, you know, sustainability is a topic, you know, Fridays for Future, you know, the climate protests. So this is something we really have to engage in. So we have energy driving us. We have ecosystems in the universities and around the universities that really want to make change here. And the European Commission has invited us both to give input on what we are doing and what we are thinking is important for the future. And at the same time, we are the trial balloons. So we can try out new formats and then feed that back into the European discussion.
Mm-hmm. And part of being a trial balloon is that, for example, Freie Universität is, as we heard, leading the Una Europa Sustainability and Climate Protection Task Force. And you have recently developed, or you are actually developing right now, an Una Europa sustainability strategy.
Yes.
And what are the key points there? And how have the different institutions come together to get into one strategy? It's a hard process, I think.
Yes, that was quite a participative process. Everyone came in, brought also their experiences, their practices from the various partner universities. We formed a task force where we had 4 areas that we wanted to make a difference. It's the whole university approach, so all missions of the university, how we teach, how we do research, how we interact with our communities, sustainability of our communities, the people, the students, but also our staff and our professors, our researchers, the way we teach, I already said, and the way we run our buildings, yeah? Energy efficiency, how we commute to campus, all these things. So we have these 4 groups. We have governance, we have research and teaching, we have community, building resilient communities, and operations. And then our 8 universities, we looked into who has practices that they think are good and could be model practices. So they are the champions of a specific area. And then there are others who want to learn something. Like, for example, in Germany, and I think we can say that German universities have not necessarily always looked so much at their communities and how to make them resilient and also sustainably raising communities. So that's something where we as Freie say we want to learn something. But on the other hand, we are really good in operations. So we have already, our president said it already, we have this goal to be climate neutral in 2025. We have already reduced 80% of our CO2 output compared to 10 years ago. So in that way, that's something where we can say, here we are the champions, and on the other hand, we learn. And so this is how the discussions have been going. And tomorrow, the presidents and rectors of our universities are meeting, and then they get an update on the development of the strategy.
Thanks so much. As Soledad has said, it's about impact. The question is, how actually are we getting impact into communities? As you said, at least for German universities, being of impact on their communities has not been in the focus of universities. And how do you make sure, Verena, that we don't have like a very nice intellectual debate on sustainability and that we feel really good about it and it feels really good to talk about sustainability, but that we go beyond that and that we really make a difference? I'm not sure that this will be easy to do. So how can we make sure that something really happens besides nice talks like this one?
Yeah, no, absolutely, you're right. And I think, first of all, we have our students who are really pushing us. And I can tell you also at our university, our students are asking, and so we have to give answers. What have you done to reduce the carbon footprint? At the same time, for our staff and the professors, I think the current debate and also the doubts towards scientific outcomes in society have been a motivating force. So we are rethinking our curricula, and we want to include sustainability throughout everything, all missions of the university. And so in that way, if students come to our universities from day one, they will be confronted with thinking about sustainability, thinking about in the way they use paper, thinking about in the way we use food and dispose of our waste at the university, but also in the curriculum. And so after 3 years at the university, they come with a BA from our institutions, and it's natural just to consider sustainable behavior. And that's how you change practices, by training the next generation and by, at each step of what you do, questioning yourself whether you really consider the sustainability goals.
Thank you. Soledad, would you agree that the role of students is crucial in order to demand change from universities, and that professors like yourself wouldn't do it by themselves, that they need maybe the younger generation to push?
Absolutely, absolutely true. But we also need the structures within universities where students feel part of that development of solutions, or they have an active role in ensuring that change. And I think that the answer to your question is collaboration, is through collaboration, and collaboration beyond universities, where we can really engage with the actual needs people have across our communities, and develop the plans, the solutions, the future strategies that will help them tackling the challenges that will continue to happen. So I do think that the universities need to be connected locally as well as globally, and regionally as well as globally, to be able to have that strong impact. But of course, as I mentioned before, the global, the international collaboration will strengthen the development of knowledge in a way that is co-produced and co-shared and agreed in a way across this larger community of academics and students and associated partners.
Alexandra, it's easy to say that the younger generation is always more interested in sustainability and in maybe new ideas and everything, and that they want to make the world a better place. Is that something that you actually observe? From my point of view, being young doesn't automatically mean that you are a better person. But again, here, everybody says, well, the younger generation has to push. Is that true?
Of course it is. Sorry. Yeah, it doesn't mean automatically that you're engaged and so on, but I think it's crucial what Soledad just said, that if we are part of the community, if we, the students, feel the part of the community, if we are not being preached or something like that, if we are the part of the dialogue, we have the energy. I don't know if I can say we, but because I'm thinking about my own students too, that their energy is much greater than mine, and empowering the students and empowering the students' communities as well as individuals into being the part of the community is crucial in getting into this young power and, you know, located it well into good good aim, our goal of being the sustainable university of the future.
Thanks so much. Verena, while formulating the strategy, how much did you think about the European Green Deal and the European Strategy for Higher Education? How much does that play into that, and how much does that inspire you? Is it something that is not really close to your thoughts at the Una Europa Alliance?
I think it's very close to our hearts because, of course, what we do here at Una Europa and also in other European university alliances is that we are shaping, by training and by educating the next generation, we also shape the values of the European Union of the future. And if we say sustainability is a big part of that, then of course we're happy if the policymakers on the other hand are also supporting initiatives in that way. We were also part of an interview study organized by the European Commission where they were also trying to find out what role universities can play and how we can contribute. And so we're also eagerly awaiting the EU's strategy paper that will come within the next 6 months on sustainability and higher education.
So then we will see how well that fits together, and there might be even the support for some additional projects there. Yeah. Doris, as I said, you're the Associate Director of the European Engagement at Trinity College Dublin. Sometimes when I talk about engagement, I wonder how well does that go along with the notion of maybe some kind of an objective science and research. We're talking about objective, we're talking about impact, we're talking about beliefs and ideas that sustainability is a very important thing. I think that research and science is also not being about activists, isn't it, Doris? How does that go together?
I think that, I mean, one of the things that I see very much in common with Una Europa and Charmy U is this interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary approach. So I think when we talk about engagement, we can talk about many things, but transdisciplinarity, which means engagement with external stakeholders, is very important. And it's very powerful in terms of both getting understanding of how others see challenges such as those around climate action and hearing our views and hearing their views so that we can develop a collaborative approach. And whether it's working then with external companies, whether it's in terms of spin-offs, in terms of engaging with local community, with regions, with governments, there has to be, I think, a reciprocal process in terms of being able to listen, to hear, and to input. So engagement to me is very much a two-way process. It's not one having a stronger voice than another, and that, as I say, resonates down, I think, both into what Una Europa and Charmy U are very much cultivating, which is that transdisciplinary approach.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. I just want to give you the opportunity in the audience here in the room, both here in the room and virtual, just to maybe add some questions, some comments to our discussion. So you're really invited, if you have a question or a comment, to share that. There will be a microphone. Just give us a signal if you would like to add something, ask a question or a comment. And the same also applies to online. Just ask us a question at any time if you wish to. Is there a question already right now? I don't see one, so let me just move on with this question of how being a researcher and maybe somewhat being in a neutral role, objective role, even though I'm not sure that there is something like that, goes together with being active in sustainability or in engaging for a better world. Soledad.
I think it's difficult to generalize that because there are different forms of research across universities and within different disciplines. The way that we undertake research varies. So I can talk about my own experience, and what I have been doing in the last few years has been more within the field of action research, where I try to work with communities that are in very, very vulnerable situations, particularly in Latin America, across the edges of Latin American cities, and try to work with them at understanding, similar to what Doris was saying, understanding their perception of the risks ahead in relation to climate change, and develop solutions that are suitable to their needs, but are also the result of a shared responsibility with government institutions, with academic organizations, community leaders, etc. But in that sense, to me, what perhaps universities could do better, particularly in relation to sustainability and climate change. Coming from Edinburgh, I have seen in the last months the sort of buzzing movement of people around COP26, and it's clear that there is, our principal a few nights ago at an event said that is perhaps the first COP where there is no question anymore about it being climate change or not the problem. We know this is a problem and we know we have to deal with it. But my feeling is that many of these groups, many of these communities across countries and regions that have very different situations and impacts of climate change, perhaps could do better with understanding their local maybe consequences and develop very specific plans. So somehow universities could help these groups of communities becoming closer to understanding solutions that are suitable and connected to their links to the environment, which I think people are reacting and they know this is a problem, but my feeling is that we can be better at informing these processes and helping these very energetic groups to develop plans and solutions and strategies for the future.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Universities, Verena, are already very complex institutions, and now with the European University Alliances, you add to that complexity. You don't only have the institutions by themselves and all the different structures they have, the different councils and groups that are represented within one university. Now you have all the different universities. You have more layers. How can be an alliance like that really be on the forefront of development? How can an alliance like that be a pioneer if basically there is a danger of always going for the solution that everybody can agree to, Verena?
Well, I've had this fear as well when we started out, but I can tell you after the first 2 years in the process that rather the opposite is the case. So for us at the leadership, it's sometimes very, very difficult to channel the tremendous energy that is developed by the communities of our universities. I mean, we are 8 very vibrant universities with very active scholars, active students, active staff, and they all come together, and there's a permanent creation, recreation, ongoing communication of what we could do to make our universities, but also the European University Alliance, a better place. So in that way, it's more an issue of channeling than really an issue of mobilizing or motivating. And what has worked extremely well is, for example, at the students level, we have an Una Europa Student Congress that has just met last month in Madrid for the 2nd time, also with the topic of sustainability on their agenda to, give us more homework to do as universities. And this is really good to see that all universities are sending their people to the Congress and new ideas are coming up all the time.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. Is there a question? Yeah, please go ahead. Maybe you just introduce yourself very briefly and then you go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Dominique Abbas. I'm a member of the student board, so I think it's the perfect time to react to what has just been said, and not only to agree with what has been said about not only the necessity to involve the students, of course, because it is a necessity to involve and a responsibility towards, of course, the next generations, but it is also a useful tool because of the mass. We are in Una Europa around 500,000 students, 400,000 students, which means that when we decide collectively to go somewhere, we have the power of doing so because we have this huge mass of students doing so. And it is also an answer to the complexity of our universities, because every one of our universities is different, and every day in the student board we are dealing with 8 different universities. But when we decide to come together on a project, when we have the power of the 400,000 students going with us, we can achieve things, and it moves the teachers and it moves the administration, and so this is how we can achieve things. So, and yes, we talked about the Student Congress. It has been, I think, a huge success, and I'm not telling this because we have some of the students organizing it in the room, but also because when we got students together in a Zoom meeting room, of course, because it was online. The first time we thought about this student congress, and we asked them what they would like the topic to be. The first answer was sustainability. Nobody imposed the topic. It wasn't, you have to talk about sustainability. It is the fact that I think, as the student community of Una Europa, we recognize that one of the most urgent priority of our alliance should be, and for our generation is sustainability and how to achieve it. So I can only agree with what has been said. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. I think we just keep collecting some more questions or comments. Please go ahead.
Edinburgh. So I have a slightly provocative question, which is, we bring together in UNA 8 very rich countries. Half the G7 is there, plus some other relatively wealthy nations. What can we do by working together to make sure the voices of the poor are heard in terms of research, but also that the poor of the world get more access to the education we offer?
Thanks so much. Maybe we'll take that question back to the panel. Who would like to reply to the question?
So I can.
Verena, and maybe then Soledad?
So I can just talk about Una Europa. Of course, this is a question that we also posed for ourselves as the board of directors. So how can we actually contribute to a more sustainable world? And so we have another strategy, not just a sustainability strategy, but we have also developed the Una Europa international strategy that is very strongly focusing on cooperation with Africa. And so we are currently at a process, and that is led by Complutense, by the University of Madrid, the Complutense. So we are just now identifying ways to go forward in cooperation, co-creation, co-development with partners in Africa. And of course, sustainability will be a really important topic here as well. So maybe just so much from that.
Soledad?
Thank you. See, I agree with these strategies, and I think they're very useful, but I do feel that we have to draw on the existing networks that our universities have across the world to make sure that that impact is there. Across our research, across our collaboration, we are engaging with institutions and not just academic institutions globally. And I do feel that there needs to be perhaps a stronger commitment there to make sure that these institutions connected to Una Europa also reach the benefits of these actions that are being developed. Particularly also with the community of our students, our international students. All of these academic institutions have very big communities of international students. And we are promoting open science and open development of research, but how do we perhaps embed within our programs and courses much more awareness of maybe the needs that might be happening across the Global South, for example, through teaching and through maybe programs of engagement that are much closely connected to these places than at the moment there might be. And then finally, one particular point I think is key is technology. I mean, we haven't mentioned technology, but we have the means to connect much more widely. And I think we have to think of pathways of education which are much enabled by technology to these connections. And students should have a say in the way they engage with them, in a way.
Thank you so much. We have about 5 more minutes for questions, so if also virtually you have more questions, you can use also the hashtag Una Europa Talk, one word, via Twitter if you would like to add questions. There's one question online from Alan Kennedy. How do we tackle the challenges promoting sustainability outside our institutions? There is a strong willingness to be sustainable, but when it comes to taking action and paying for it, often momentum falls away. And Doris, I think this is a very important point, that when you talk to people outside universities, I would also say inside universities as well, you know, they're always really happy and excited about it, but when it means that they have to pay something, could be money, could be resources, could be time, well, then sometimes they're not quite that excited anymore, Doris. So what can we do about it, asked Alan Kennedy.
Yeah, I think that very much comes back to having to promote individual behavior. Sometimes, as you said, a lot of the discourse around change is around the collective, which we view as something outside of ourselves. So it is around very much owning the challenge within our own universities, for example. So I know within Charm EU, we are very much looking to engage right across the different campuses. I've mentioned the Uni Echo project, which is very much bringing on board staff and students, looking to see what can we do. And there's things that we can do that are very, very simple. And again, we tend to think of carbon emissions as things like global aviation. But the amount of food waste, for example, and that's something where we can change our own behavior. So, the amount of food waste accounts for 4 times the amount of global emissions as global aviation. So that's something that I can do. That's something that you can do. So we need to think, and we need to have the narrative around climate change to be things that are manageable and that can be tackled at an individual level, and then promoted through our educational settings. And universities work to shape the human mind. They work to shape the human mind in terms of how we educate, what we educate, how we research, what we research, how we innovate, and whom we innovate with. And I think working across those and taking on board both the individual and the collective approach, we can make changes. And actually making those changes will, in many regards, result in a cost saving, not in a cost. And then coming back to the previous question, because this ties into this engagement requires interaction with the Global South, because they have engaged and had to have the impact of climate change before it's really hit the industrialized countries. And they have a very important part to say in this discourse. And it's not just about us engaging with them to broaden our alliances in terms of having a better reach, but actually because they have things to teach us in terms of how they've had to produce things in terms of solutions in a cost-effective way. So for me, it is about bringing back climate change to what each of us as an individual can do, as well as what the collective can do. Climate action is not going to end in 2030 or 2050, regardless of whether we meet our goals. It is a permanent transition to a new way of thinking. And it's a permanent transition for a new way of thinking for all of us. And I often think of a very famous Irish poet who passed away recently, and he said, something that will not acknowledge conclusion must forever begin. And that's what climate action is about. We will never conclude the conversation about climate action. We always have to be innovative and think about what more can we do. And in that regard, I really think the universities and the university alliances can be very powerful pioneers of change.
Thank you so much. Just before I would like you to go into a round of final statements. Soledad, let me ask you one thing, talking about sustainable universities. We all know about Brexit. So what does Brexit mean to the sustainable participation of the University of Edinburgh in an alliance, a European University Alliance? Is that something that worries you, that concerns you?
I think it just demonstrates the importance of collaboration beyond our political leaders. It's not... We're the consequence of some decisions that perhaps intend to separate us. But I think the commitment from Una Europa is very much to engaging everyone and every country, and particularly now we're looking, as mentioned, beyond Europe and much broadly to across the globe.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much. So my final question to all of you, what are the next steps? And I mean the next steps for Una Europa, but also more generally speaking, Doris, for example, when it comes to sustainability and universities. What is, from your point of view, maybe the most crucial next step, the next thing to do within Una Europa or within your own university? And maybe, Doris, maybe you would like to start, and then I would like to hear all of you. What is the next most important step? Doris.
I think the next most important step is to reach out really from something that Charm EU has already done, which is to have sustainable development as part of the educational principles. So similar to what some previous speakers have said, it can't be an add-on. It has to be embedded across everything that we do. And therefore it becomes actually something that we don't even necessarily need to think about exclusively, because it's simply there. And I think that's where we need to begin. So we've done that in terms of our joint masters, but we will be developing other educational programs, but that also influences what our member universities are doing as well.
Thanks so much. Soledad.
I think we should think some pilot activities. My feeling is that we should be really radical, that we should test the ways in which students engage in education, and they have a sort of leading role in developing their education. I was reading recently that perhaps about 80% of jobs that will be needed in 2030, 2040 do not exist yet. So how do we skill our students to that future world? So my feeling is that we should test ways in which we can create flexible pathways of education where students have a say on the way they run through them, and they are very much multicultural. They are exposed to these realities that we mentioned before across the globe, across the global south, and they enable actions in reality. So they really engage with problems and solutions that people are suffering at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much. Alexandra?
Yeah, I'm feeling really in the part of this future UniLab. So talking about the next steps, I'm thinking about the role of this think tank. And we had already 2 rounds, and we're having the 3rd round of the Visionaries and answering those crucial questions in 4 different areas. But then the next steps is to engage implementers or developers of the ideas and adjusting those visions into the reality of our universities. And as Soledad just says, go and pilot them within our alliance.
Thanks so much. Verena, what's the next step?
Well, we have a very concrete next step. That's our joint Bachelor in Sustainability Studies that we already have in our program for Una Europa. And I think one concrete next step here is also to overcome and to contribute and to develop formats and to pilot formats that help also students overcome this division between the natural sciences on the one hand, that understand how sustainability and climate change works, and the social sciences and humanities that talk about the social, cultural effects of this. Yeah? So we have to bring them together, and that's for me as a university leader, this is something that we have to work on, to develop new formats, to pilot that, to actually really live interdisciplinarity, because that's the key for sustainability in teaching.
I think it's a fascinating endeavor, you know, to observe what's going on right now within Una Europa and also other European university alliances that are focusing on sustainability. But at the same time, I still feel that there's a lot of talking there. And I would be really, really interested in getting back to all of you in maybe 5 years and see what has happened in the meantime and how much of these great ideas that we just talked about are reality then. And I think just, you know, making maybe the campuses climate neutral is really the easiest step. You know, it's hard, but it's easy. And so changing whole societies, communities, and to talk about new curricula, for example, that's some other talk. And so I'm really, really interested in seeing what will be happening in the next 5 years or so, and maybe you will invite me again, we'll see. But I think this is something that is really fascinating that's going on. But my feeling is it's way to go, and I know that you all of you know that. And it's not yet the case that universities are driving sustainability, but I wish you all that after working together, having worked together for a number of years, that this is really the case, that the European University Alliances, such as Una Europa, are driving and have driven sustainability. Thank you so much. And I think I give one more time the last word to you. You have the last word, Verena.
I have the last words.
As
then I would
host
just,
of tonight.
as host of tonight, and I would just like to say thank you to everyone. Thank you to Doris Alexander joining us remotely. Thank you to Soledad, to Alexandra, and also thank you to you, Jan Viada. I think this was great fun, the discussion.
Thanks so much.
No, thanks to everyone out here. Look out for what's happening at Una Europa. We have quite a lot of communicative tools, our social media account, our website, and everyone who is part of the universities, please get involved. We need you all to make this happen.
Thank you and goodbye out there and here in the room. Thanks so much.
Vielen Dank.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Can you still hear us? Yeah? Thanks so much. It was a pleasure.